Hello, this is Andrea for the Learning Bear Podcast, and today we are going to be reviewing an environmental education curriculum called In the Air. In the Air was developed by the EPA and the Missouri Botanical Garden. It's a series of activities divided into different age groups, K3, 3-6, 6-8, 9-12, and adult. Each grade level has an ebook, which is a folder that has been zipped, consisting of the background information, pre-post activity, 3 to 5 connecting activities depending on the age group, and then a core activity. There's also a teacher manual that has all of these separate files in one document. The adult level has one main activity, which is a skit, and it's a standalone activity. The school level activities can connect to national standards as well as Missouri-specific state standards. There's 3 things I want to make you aware of before we really get into this. The first is that there's a lot of repetition of content in this manual, which I see as a downfall in a lot of ways, but I will make sure to make you aware of it if I think it's a good thing or a bad thing. Then they've broken this down very strangely because there's all this overlap and there's a lot of, again, repetition of material. As you can see, there's K3, 3-6. So the grade 3 is repeated twice. And then 3-6 and 6-8. 6 is done twice. And because of this breakdown, there's a lot of question for me about whether these activities are age appropriate. And we'll talk more about that. And then the last thing is, in order to feel like I've done this justice, I wanted to do a little mini review over each age bracket, because it is pretty extensive and impressive, and they have a lot of really good information, and I didn't feel like I could do it justice without covering all of the areas. Grades K through 3 starts with some background information, and it is thorough and extensive. Here's the thing about the background information, just to kick off the repetition right at the start. The background information is the same regardless of what age bracket you're in. It is very thorough, and if you do not have a background in air pollution or pollution in general, it's going to be overwhelming. I feel like I'm pretty well versed in most of the environmental education topics. I'm certainly not an expert on everything, and it was overwhelming for me. I got to about page 4 before I thought, I'm really going to have to look at this a few more times before I really get it. So don't feel frustrated if you don't get it. It's okay. And it's okay because they mention in the background that it is not necessary to know the information in that background document in order to successfully teach the activities. So if you don't feel like you can go into the background information without your head spinning, don't worry about it. It's okay. Just move on to the activities. Now, in the K3 bracket, they have a pre-activity. They have 2 of them, actually, the Dirty Air cards and the puppet project. The Dirty Air cards are kind of just a primer to get them to start thinking about pollution, and it's kind of a fun way to do it. It's got some images and some information. And then the puppet part of it is making puppets for the culminating puppet show near the end. Then moving on to Activity 1, they have a really easy matching sheet, which I think is perfect for the age group kindergarten and 1st grade. I really question if it's appropriate for 2 and 3. Again, because of how they broke it down, I really think it's a reach for 3rd graders to be interested in Activity 1 and in Activity 2. I think they're both a little too easy for these older age groups. There either needs to be an extension or a completely separate activity or something. There needs to be something to make it just a little bit harder for those older age groups. The matching game and for the matching sheet, Activity 1 and 2, it's only 6-part matching. So, maybe for the upper grades, they have more matching. It's a memory game, so maybe they have more cards or something. I don't know. Something needs to change there. Then Activity 3 is an animal crackers activity. It's really cool, and I am definitely going to do it the next available opportunity. I'm trying to figure out ways to work air pollution into my regular repertoire because some of these activities are really interesting and fun. I like it a lot, but again, coming back to age appropriate, I don't think it's reasonable to ask kindergarten and 1st grade to not play with the polluted animal crackers and frosting. I think that's asking a lot of them. I think it would have been better to make a running around game or something for kindergarten and 1st grade. I think 2nd and 3rd graders would have enough discipline not to do that and would be better following the directions. Again, age appropriate. You're going to hear me say it a lot. Core activity is a puppet show, and I think it's a really awesome idea for the younger kids, the K1 group. Second and third grade, maybe second would be okay. Third grade, I'm concerned about them saying, this is for babies. Some of them will probably be okay with it. Some of them that are more mature are not going to be okay with it. I can pretty much hear all of the complaining in my head right now. There needs to be a different way of breaking down these groups. K through 2 would be okay with all of these. Third grade is not. Grades 3 through 6 starts with the background information that we've already covered. Then they have a pre-post test, which I really like this addition. I think it's really smart. They have an art activity where they describe what they think pollution is before and after they've done all of these activities. I think that's perfect. Activity 1 is the animal cracker lesson from the previous age group. I think that activity belongs here. I think it makes sense here. These kids are going to have enough discipline to not eat the animal crackers with the frosting that has vinegar in it. They're going to get it. It's going to make more sense to them. It does not belong in that younger bracket. The second activity is about mapping. They map out pollution. It's very complex, and I just don't know if third and fourth graders would be able to handle it. I've done similar activities with mapping in a mixed group that had 3 through 6 in it, actually, and I pretty much ran around between third and fourth grade groups, and I was a sweaty, hot mess when I was done. They enjoy the activity, but it requires so much brain power for both you and for them, and there's a lot of frustration. I just don't think it's age appropriate. That's what it comes down to. I think it's too hard for those younger groups. I think it's perfect for 5th and 6th grade. They can do it easily by themselves, I think, but 3rd and 4th grade, I think you're asking too much. If you have mature kids, maybe they could handle it on their own, but as it is, I think it's just a little too hard. Activity 3 deals with pollution in St. Louis, air pollution, and I like that it stays specific. You'll hear me say it again later. I like activities that are relevant to kids, either something they can go out and touch right now, something they experience in their own lives, because it's basically like distributed practice. They're more likely to pick it up. They're more likely to tell somebody else about it, to be excited about it. Hey, I learned this in school. If they can see the applicability in their life, if you can show it to them, you can demonstrate it to them right here, right now. It's not theoretical. They're more likely to love it. So I really like that activity connects to their state specifically, even though it is bad and it's about pollution. The core activity is really good, but it's really detailed and extensive. And again, coming back to grades 3 and 4, I don't feel like they'd be able to handle it. I think it's just a little too hard. Just a lot of steps and a lot of parts, moving parts, and third graders are like the kindergartners of this age group. It's like herding cats, and it's hard, and they do the best they can, and I love that, but ultimately, you're just reaching a little too far. Pull it back just a bit. Grades 6 through 8, same background, same pre-activity, so easy peasy there. Activity 1 is the mapping activity from the previous age group, and I think that mapping activity belongs here. It makes more sense. This age group should easily be able to handle it and get the most out of it. This is where that belongs. Activity 2 is the cleaners activity, where they do an experiment between natural cleaners and chemical cleaners. The experiment is awesome. I really like the extension where they have to design their own safe cleaner kit. I think that's awesome. That's just so great. I can't wait to do this with my own group of kids. This is just awesome. I can't brag about it enough. I love it so much. Activity 3 is a tip throw through the toxics. I think that's a hilarious title. It's an interesting explanation of watersheds. It's very detailed and complex. I don't know how successful it would be. It feels like it could be kind of hard, but if you have a really good group of 6th through 8th graders, I think it could be really fun, and I would really like to try it, to be honest. The core activity is a competitive dice money game to see who has the least amount of pollution in their town. I really like it. It's innovative. It's detailed. I would have to see it firsthand, or at least have everything in front of me to be able to understand it. I'm a little bit of a disadvantage because everything's online, and I learn better when it's in print in front of me. and I can make notes and draw diagrams and stuff. That's how I learn. So I'm a little bit of a disadvantage on that, but I love this chunk. The more I think about it, the more I really love the 6th through 8th grade chunk of activities. They're really, really well done. Finishing up our school grade chunks, we have grades 9 through 12. The background, again, the same. The pre-activity is an extension of the last 2 age groups, and I really like it a lot. It's so thoughtful. They do an art project, but it's not, just like silly stuff like the younger grades. It is a mural or it's poetry or something. They're really taking what they've learned all the way up to this point and putting it into art, and I really like it. It's really cool. And some of the examples they had in the teacher sheets is really cool. Activity 1 is an allegory activity. I have said it before in other videos. Part of environmental education is this interdisciplinary nature where you have science, you have math, you have history, you have language arts, and you have expressive arts, sometimes physical education, sometimes health. And I love, love, love that this manual continues to do that. It's part and parcel of what makes environmental education so awesome, especially in summer camps. If you can hit all of those subjects and keep their brain moving in all of these different ways, not just one way, you're benefiting those kids in innumerable amount of ways. It's so awesome. So I really like that. I also really like in these activities, there's 5 connecting activities here. I like that they are taking these misconceptions about pollutions and myths and completely unraveling them and showing what is really true. I love their honesty. I love that they're taking it head on. I think that's just fantastic. Activity 2 is one of my favorite activities, especially in this age group here. First of all, your kids start collecting data the week before you're actually going to do the activity. So I like that distributed practice. I also really like that that data is coming straight from their real life. So they're seeing how this applies to them. They're taking notice of what's going on around them. And as always, real life applicability, that's basically my catchphrase. I love that stuff. Activity 3 is about the water cycle, and it's an interesting spin, but, in a lot of age groups that I've worked with, or states, I should say, maybe not age groups, they're learning about the water cycle and the terminology in like 4th and 5th grade. So I feel like this might be a little underneath what 9 and 12 are capable of. Maybe there's some extensions they could do to make it more age appropriate, but just seems like old news almost. I mean, the water cycle is very important, and I love teaching the water cycle, but it just doesn't seem to fit here with 9 through 12. Activity 4 is a skit, and with the right kids, the skits would be incredible. So awesome. And what I really like about the skits and what they've built into the programming is that you can add your personal experiences. So you may be teaching this skit to 5 different classes, but because they can build in their personality, it's going to be unique every time. And I think that's fantastic. I love that they actually built that into the skit. It doesn't have to be word for word what is in there. I love that. Activity 5 is research. Comes back to real life applicability. I'm telling you, that's my catchphrase. I'm finding out. So I really like activity 5 as well. The core activity falls back onto worksheets, and I think that's kind of lame. They've done some amazing things here. I've raved about how great some of their activities are, and then they just fall short with that worksheet crutch. One of the other keystones to environmental education is that we don't just hand out worksheets and paper and pencil, whatever, and they just sit at their desk. One of our things is taking kids outside and doing stuff. So take them to a wildlife refuge and have them do a field investigation. You probably can't do like an air test, but do a water test. See what the pollution's like in your local area. Do real life stuff. Show them these wild jobs that are out there that they could do in their lives later. Do it. You can. The adult portion of this activity is very interesting. There's 2 options. One that's labeled as more fun but more work, and the other one is labeled as less fun but less work. I like their honesty. That's how I roll. I really like that. I also really like in this series of lessons, which is very small, that they have an inclusion of useful prizes like safe cleaners like baking soda and vinegar. I like that. I also like that they're including prizes in the curriculum because, I mean, that's how I get down. And when I'm teaching adults, there are prizes. At first, I thought this was going to be like training for the teachers to do the different lessons we've already talked about, but it turns out it's actually a standalone thing for adults to learn more about the chemicals they use in their house for cleaning products. I don't know if adults would really be into putting on a skit or commercials like they do in the curriculum. With the right group of adults, just like with kids, it would be hilarious, but I'm as an introvert, the idea of doing a skit kind of makes me want to be sick. So I love to watch it. I love to teach it. I love to see the sparks flying and the imagination going on. It's so much fun to see, but I don't think it's feasible for every crowd to make them do a skit because they're going to hate it and they're going to shut down and not want to do it. I guarantee it. My final grade for this curriculum is an 80%, 16 out of 20. And this is the lowest grade that I've given so far in my reviews. And I feel kind of bad about that because I don't like, being mean or confrontational in any ways. But I also want to be honest. And for anybody out there that's thinking about trying any of these, I want them to know what they're really getting into. Is it worth looking at? What am I going to have to filter through to find the good stuff? I want you to know what's good and what's bad. So I don't think it is wise of me to just slap 5s on every curriculum just to say it's amazing. I think I need to be honest. So with that in mind, I gave the content of this a 3. And I said it time and time again throughout this presentation, a lot of this materials are not really age appropriate. I have taught all of these age groups. I've taught every single age group from 2 to 102. And I'm telling you, some of those activities are way too easy or way too hard. And I think they need to be adjusted. And that goes hand in hand with the structure. It really should be redistributed to K2, 3-5, and 6-8. That eliminates the overlap. It eliminates the repetition of the activities. The activities that are present will be more appropriate. I also think that where there's duplicates, like the animal cracker activity, they need to be put where it's appropriate and then eliminated in the other place. And either eliminate or replace. Either way is a valuable option. I think it's a disservice to this curriculum as a whole by having those repeats and not being properly structured. There's a lot of nuggets of amazing stuff going on in this curriculum that I really, really like. And there really are activities that I'm going to pull out of here and use at the first available opportunity. But the parts that bother me, really, it's frustrating. And that's why I gave it a 3 and a 4 on content and structure, because these are simple fixes, but they are very glaring problems. At least for me, someone that looks at curriculum and reads it all the time, I notice these things and I know that it would be an issue when you go to teach it. Now, as far as meeting objectives, let's get on to some good news. I think that they meet and exceed their expectations as far as objectives go. They're hitting their state and national standards, which is always important. And if they want these implemented in schools, that's the first thing they're going to look at. They're getting those 21st century skills. And I like that the lessons build on each other through the years. I also like that they hit the objective as far as environmental education goes with having interdisciplinary activities as well as engaging activities. That's part and parcel of environmental education. And with that, I think they were really creative for the most part. I think there's some room for growth in a few areas that I've already mentioned. But overall, it's a really great manual. You should definitely check it out. It's interesting. There's a lot of good stuff going on in here. Again, it's called the In the Air curriculum put on by the EPA and Missouri Botanical Gardens. Have a great day. Check it out, and I'll catch you next time.